What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Gabe, Yanez, and I, we are on for our weekly episode. He just got done doing a sprint triathlon, right?
Oh, it was a half Ironman, but it was a relay.
Oh man, half Ironman with a group of high school buds or college friends. And I just got back from a bunch of travel. And so we are going to talk about lessons learned on the journey. So talk to me about this half Ironman and how is it broken up and what was the hardest part and would you do it again?
Dude, a couple different things. So I've mentioned this on the podcast a couple times, which is funny. And exactly what I thought was going to happen ended up happening. These are like my college buddies. We swam together in college, used to drink like freaking fish, man. We used to get like so irresponsibly drunk. And it was really good times and it was fun. But I was stressing a little bit because, I mean, aside from this podcast and just like, you know, family, people that I'm around, like, I don't make a big deal of the fact that like we don't drink anymore. We just don't drink anymore. Like it just kind of happened when Ariel got pregnant the first time and we just, you know, we don't do it. But it's not like hey, I don't drink anymore. I think if anything with the challenge TH45, I probably talked about it most from like a train hard perspective than anything else. But I was really nervous that, you know, with these guys, especially because we were going to get back together, like good times, like, you know, have fun, reminisce, that I was going to feel left out or weird if I didn't partake. And dude, of course, it was like the most non-issue it could have been. One of my buddies doesn't drink anymore either. So he was just like, oh yeah, me neither. My other buddy is kind of like, he's been doing it like for a couple months this year and he's just kind of waiting until his bachelor party. He'll probably drink it. Like he hasn't cut it off 100%, but he was drinking non-alcoholic beers all weekend. And everyone else was like, you know, had a beer here and there, but it like wasn't a thing. And again, I think that this is, I know because I've heard now from clients that I work with, from people that I've talked to, from people in the train hard community, like this always happens. Like I think so many people end up not either, you know, bringing back how much alcohol they drink to like real moderation or cutting it out if they just don't enjoy it or don't like it, because there's this like peer pressure that isn't even actual peer pressure. It's like all in your head. It's like you build it up to be what it is. You have the fear of the judgment. You have the fear of like, what are they going to say? People are going to think I'm lame. People are going to think I'm not fun. And it's just like time and time again, at least for me, anecdotally, has been like 100% never the case. And even when it is, it's like one comment, one thing here, and then you just like, yeah, I mean, just don't drink anymore. And it's like not a big deal at all. So that was the first thing, because I remember mentioning on the podcast that it was like, I was like a little nervous. I was like, should I tell him beforehand? Like whatever.
You're also grown men. Like, dude, I think there's a big difference. Like, especially like in my circle, bro, my guys, all of our friends, we're 40 years old. Like we're not like in our 20s trying to get shit-faced in a college dorm, right? If we're going out and, you know, I just think things have evolved and changed, you know, so even since the last time you saw them, right?
For sure. But I mean, in many ways, aside from the drinking, like, and this is what made it so fun, and I'm so glad it happened, because it's one of those things, I mean, everyone can relate to having a group chat or a group of friends where like, they're always like, oh, you know, it would be really fun if we did this. Like, it'd be really fun if we got together for this. And everyone's like, oh yeah, like I'm down. But once it comes to like picking a date, putting money down, booking a flight, like booking an Airbnb, it just never happens. People are busy and it's tough, and like, you know, committing to like going somewhere, especially now, like, you know, a couple of us have kids, it's super tough. So I always told Ariel, because I was like, hey, my buddies want to do this. Like, you know, would you want to come? Like, you know, are we all good with the kids? By the way, there's like a 5% chance that this is happening. Like I'm asking you, it's like, you know, you're cool with it, but like, it's probably not going to happen. And it ended up happening, which was like awesome. And aside from, you know, I mean, we didn't get shit-faced. We had so much fun, and it was literally like going back to when we were in the college swim team again. It was funny. We had to be, the race started at 5:50 a.m. 5:50 a.m., the first waves of swimmers went off. And because we like got to check in late, and my buddy who's an NYPD police officer got called into overtime last minute, they're super strict about you have to be at mandatory check-in the day before. We had to like call them, like make sure we got an excuse. Anyway, we had to be there morning of at 4:45. Our Airbnb was an hour away from the race spot. So we literally woke up at 3 a.m. to go for the race and do this. And it was just like, it brought so many.
Was it a relay or was it?
It was a relay.
solo?
Yeah. So we did it. You can do it as a 2-person relay or a 3-person relay. We did 3-person relays where I ended up doing the bike ride. So it was 6 of us and someone did the swim, bike, run. Like we split everything. Some people do it as 2-people relays where someone can either do, you can split it up however you want. You can either do the swim bike and someone else runs, or someone can do a swim, someone does a bike, and then the same person does the run again. But we split it all the way.
Wait, so you and a partner did the bike portion?
No. So the relay was 3 people on the relay team. My friend swam, I biked, and another friend ran.
But how
And then
many? There was only 3 of you?
We had 2 teams.
2 teams. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
had 2 teams.
Yeah. So you never even got in the water.
No.
Huh.
No.
I mean,
it was fun.
that's my kind of triathlon.
I did the bike ride, dude, and it was so fun because, I used to do this stuff at a like a high level. And it was funny because, dude, I was like the rookiest of rookies in how I showed up. But I mean, I thought my bike ride was really good, man. And the guys that I was biking with on the course, the guys I was passing, and even the guys that were passing me, like it was people with like $15,000 bikes, like aero helmets, like full setup. My buddy who picked me up from the airport, he brought his road bike, this like metal clunker. I didn't have click-in pedals because I didn't feel like flying with. I was gonna bring my pedals and my like clip-in shoes, but like last minute, like dude, trying to get the kids out there, I was just like, dude, it's whatever. We're doing this for fun. So I did it in sneakers and regular pedals. I had my friend's helmet that didn't fit on my head because I have a massive head, and I forgot to I should have brought my own helmet, but he just kept offering. He was like, oh, I have these things. I have water bottles. I have a bike. I have a helmet. And for me, it was just like something I don't have to fly with. Yeah. So the helmet doesn't fit me. So the helmet's sitting like on top of my head.
You're not getting that aerodynamicness, dude. That's why you didn't win.
There was zero aerodynamic in the whole situation. Because we were so late to check in, the bike seat was like a little too high for me. It wasn't comfortable. And the last thing was my plan was to actually do the bike shirtless. I was going to do the bike shirtless because it's whatever. I have like a nice pair of bike shorts. And in terms of the top, I didn't want to go like full jersey or like a tri-suit because it seemed like too intense for like the fact that we were doing this with friends. But they have a rule now in these races where you have to wear a shirt. You have to wear a shirt on the bike and on the road. You have to have a top at all times.
Is it because they want to make sure you have your number visibly
No, because on the bike, you don't even have a number. On the bike, the number goes on the bike frame. It's a sticker that goes on the bike frame. So at least for the bike, that wouldn't be why. I think it's like a decency thing. Anyway. But so I ended up racing in the race shirt. And for anyone out there that does endurance events, it's like...
Yeah, because I saw a picture with you with the Iron Man shirt on.
Yeah. So they say it's bad luck, or it's just like an unwritten rule. Like no one that takes this seriously wears the shirt that they give you at the race to do the race. That's like more of a souvenir for after. Like you don't wear the Ironman 70.3 shirt to do the race. So anyway, I'm out on this bike course. I'm not in clip-in shoes and pedals. I'm on a bike that like clearly doesn't fit me. It's not like a TT bike. It's like a road bike, a metal road bike. Like it's a commuter bike. I mean, it's still a road bike, but it wasn't like a nice bike at all. I have this helmet that like doesn't fit my head and I'm wearing the race shirt. But yeah, man, I mean, we were hauling ass. I looked back at my results when I raced in London, when I was on like age group Team USA. Whenever I say that, it sounds actually a lot more impressive than it was. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was impressive, but it was like age group qualification. Like it was cool that I did it, but it wasn't anywhere near like being pro or anything. But when I did the bike ride for that, which was Olympic distance, my average pace for that bike ride was 23.6 miles an hour, which is fast. It was a good bike ride.
Just real quick, just to pause there for a second. So when you were prime triathlon,
2013,
you would be coming off the swim. So you'd already be fatigued from the swim, right? And now the distance of the bike would have been Olympic distance, which is how much further than the distance you did today?
So Olympic distance is 40K. So it ends up being, 24.6 miles.
And what did you end up doing this time?
This time it's 56 miles. So it's more than double. It's longer because I used to do Olympic distance. This was a half Ironman.
Okay, so this one you did is longer than the one you did before, but you didn't have a swim before.
Yeah, but I mean, at least for me, like you wouldn't come out of the swim like toast. The swim is just there You get it done. Can't win the race on the swim, but you can lose the race on the swim, right? Like you're not doing the swim to like have a huge lead because it's too short to make a significant gap. You're basically just doing the swim to hopefully be in the front, which when I did this at a high level, I was. But anyway, so going back to those results, my average pace for that was like a 23.7 miles an hour back then. And dude, for the first half of this race, I was like 21, 22, like 22 miles an hour on like my little clunker bike and sneakers. I started cramping up really, really bad the second half. I ended up, my average pace, I think at the end was like 20 point something.
Hypothetically, if you had compared apples to apples, you were about a mile or two off.
I would have been pretty close. It would have been pretty close, which I was very happy with. I felt really strong on the bike, like really strong. It was also like a flat, fast course. I don't remember like the specific result I was comparing it to, like what that was like. I don't think it was very hilly. It definitely wasn't very hilly, but it could have definitely been a windy course, which would have made a difference. But yeah, man, I mean, it was just fun. It's fun to do these things, go back to it and be like, wow, like, you know, and it isn't surprising when you think about it because it's the reason we train. It's the reason we do all this stuff. It's like you can maintain a very high level of fitness if you're just doing the basics and staying with the basics. And like, you know, I run a lot now ever since, you know, I got the C2 bike. I've been doing a lot of bike on the C2. So
that thing is the best. Wait, so how did you guys, you know, it's funny. I'd say the biggest disadvantage you had was no clip pedals, dude. That is a huge,
100%,
huge disadvantage. Huge, because you don't get to have any pull. It's all push. Huge. I mean, that in itself is probably a mile per hour. Like, I mean, it's huge. And
man, it was the best feeling ever, dude. Whenever I pass somebody in these like $10,000 bikes and like full aero setup in my helmet's like off to the side because it doesn't even hit on top of my head, and I'm in running shoes. Oh man, sucks to be those guys.
How did you guys decide who did the bike, the swim, and the run?
It was just kind of like who was better off doing each one. The bike is always tough if you don't have any bike experience. So I just kind of ended up doing it because like, A, it's a long time. B, like you need a bike, even though I use my buddies. But you know, the bike is one of those things where like, if you're not comfortable in going fast on the bike, that bike could take you a long, long time. If you're just going for like a leisurely ride, you know?
Wait, how long did it take you?
2 hours, 46 minutes.
Oh, so if you're like low key, it could take you like 4 hours.
Yeah. Wow. You're out there for a long time. That was a long time. I was super sore, not from like my legs were sore, but your like I was super, super saddle sore because you have to build up to that stuff. And I haven't been on a bike for that long. The longest thing I've done on the C2 is probably like an hour 20. So double that. And, you know, the seat was a little bit high. It was a shit show, but dude, it was so fun. We had such a good time. So many laughs, like changing in transition. Yeah, look at that. That was me coming out the bike.
Dude. Oh, look at that picture.
Oh, that's so good.
I love that, dude.
That picture like perfectly depicts how the race went. It was great.
Dude, congrats, man. I did the Century ride, so 100 miles, 2 years ago with the First Form guys, and that was a fun experience. I like cycling. Like if you said, hey, let's do like some type of cycling thing, you could probably convince me of that much easier than you can get me to run really far. I just
training for it's just such a pain in the butt,
it's
man. It's a big time commitment.
And dude, there's a lot of safety concerns like where I live. You know, when I was training for the Century ride, I was hitting
wherever you live, man. Wherever you live, dude. Once you're out sharing the road with cars.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real risk, and I would also have been that guy. And you don't even want to be this guy, but you become this guy. I feel like where when I was really getting prepared for this 100-mile ride, I'd have my headphones in, right? And I would try and be understanding of the cars, but then like as I like went longer, I'd be like, fuck it. I'm just gonna kind of like go in a little bit more. Like you start like getting too comfortable with realizing like, dude, you're a small ant on this road where you have these cars and you have your headphones in so you can't hear as well. So I had to really like put myself in check. Like, you know, it only takes one car to clip you and you are screwed.
100%, man. I'm lucky where I live for running because I'm at the end of it's probably like a 2.5 mile dead end road. So I can do all my running, all of it, even the long runs going back and forth. And it's not like a pain in the butt in this like road, very limited car traffic. There was one time where I was like, hey, I have a long run. Let me go out into like the main road. I remember I was out for 2 seconds and an 18-wheeler like drove past me and I was like, nope, went right back into it. It's scary, man. It's not worth it. And it's so funny how like your risks tolerance does 100% change when you have kids, man. Like it does. I don't know if it's just, it's definitely the kids thing. Cause it's not just you get older and like, you know, when you're young, you're like, you know, just reckless and stupid, but like, dude, I can't get hurt. Can't get hurt.
It gets even worse as they get older. Actually, like we try and like, it's harder to travel without them. It's harder to go do things without them because they'll say like, oh, you're gone. I'm going to miss you. But also it's like, oh, dad, have a safe flight. I'm worried about you. Like it starts to like compound. It gets, you know, it's harder and harder, man. And like, so you don't want to do stupid stuff that puts you at risk for no reason. It's something I think about more than I probably, you know, it's just the reality of life, man, especially having kids. It's tough.
Let me ask you a question. This came up with my buddies too. It was funny. We were laughing because one of my friends was wearing these like recovery shoes, like canes. I don't know if you've heard of canes, but like recovery shoes. And we were talking about like, with running, like our feet hurt and whatever. Like I've been dealing with plantar fasciitis. Shout out to, I think, Jonathan from the Train Hard community recommended these Kuru shoes, which I ended up buying. I think they've been helpful. It's definitely been getting better. But anyway, we were just cracking up, man, because, you know, when we were young, you like laughed at like, having the foot pain or the back pain or this, like you didn't deal with anything back then. And now we're like comparing, shoes for like our different foot ailments. But the question I had for you, how much do you think about quote unquote being past your prime? And is that ever something that like you think about, and also both physically and mentally? Because I was just listening to Hermosi on Chris Williamson. I love every time they do an episode. And Alex brought up that he thinks about it a lot because it's pretty understood that your fluid intelligence, like how sharp you are, peaks at 25 to 35. 25 to 35, that's as sharp as you're going to be. After 35, it's not that it goes off a hill, but like that stuff start like mental decline is like very real and it's in many ways inevitable. Now, are there ways to slow that down? Being healthy, all of those things obviously have an impact, but like in terms of just how like sharp you are, if that peaks at 35, I'm 34. I know you're over the hump, but do you ever think about that stuff? I don't know.
I think I'm in my prime right now. That's what I think. And
then in that context, then how does that impact what you're prioritizing doing now, knowing that if you're in your prime right now, that means that you won't be in your prime in 2-3 years?
Well, I hope that I'm going to be saying I'm in my prime 2-3 years from now too. Like, I think physically, I'm obviously not in like my prime in terms of like physical capability. You can make the argument actually that maybe I am because of my skills with firearms and in combatives, but probably not like if, just pure capacity, definitely not my prime. But I think I'm in my prime today compared to in the past in terms of mindset, in terms of growth, in terms of perspective, in terms of that kind of stuff. And you don't know until you know, man. Like, I mean, dude, when, you're 34, when you get close to 40, I think you'll look back and be like, I was closed-minded on these things, or I was open-minded on these things, or whatever. Like, you just don't know until you get older. And now here I am creeping on 40. As my kids get older, I learn through them. As my exposure to different people, I learn there. Going through COVID, going through all this other stuff, from a business perspective, I feel like right now is the most open-minded I've been, I think, and the most open to more learning. And that's why I think I'm at my sharpest, right? Because like I'm openly saying, I want to learn. I want to grow. I need to read more. You know what I mean?
But I think that you're talking about apples and oranges. Like there's definitely the wisdom aspect to it and the,
that's what I mean. Yeah,
the lived experience aspect to it. But don't you think that like processing power, like literally,
that's probably long gone. Yeah, no.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, because, all right, so I'll turn it around and kind of give you like what it's made me think about a lot is like, I am at the point now where I should be taking on as much stuff that requires me to be like incredibly, like I should be doing more now than ever in the future because I literally have the capacity to now. Like if I have any ideas to like, start a side project or do this or do that, or, try and get into, real estate investment and try and figure out like how I want to plan out like the financial future for my family. Like now is the time to do it because literally I have the most like raw processing power to do it now. To me, maybe it's just lit a little bit of a fire of an urgency per se, and not an urgency in that like, anything's going to fall off a cliff in the coming years. But I don't know, that just really struck me specifically because I'm going to be 35 next year of like, man, I'm never going to be as, maybe like quick as I am now with stuff.
I mean, starting that kind of stuff earlier anyways is not going to be a bad thing, right? There's no negative to that.
But right. But I think that for a lot of people, me included in many ways, it's so easy to be like, I have time.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, the time goes by fast. I think that what you give up with this like youth is that you gain in wisdom. Like, I'd much rather have a 65-year-old guy than a 25-year-old guy. It depends on, obviously there's so many circumstances here, but like, dude, the older I get, the more I realize that wisdom and age and experience plays such a vital role because you could just learn how to overcome situations so much better because you've seen it before. And when you're younger, you just haven't been exposed to it. You just don't know. And that's what I'm gathering as I get older, for sure.
What's something that like over the past 2-3 years is like an example for that in your life? Like last 5 years, last 6 years, like what's something that like you would look back at Jason Khalipa my age and be like, I learned that lesson and I just didn't have that back then.
I think with kids, let's just take COVID.
You're turning 39 this year, correct?
Turning 40 in October.
Turning 40 this year.
I'd say like, COVID taught me a lot, right? Where there was so much outside my control. Watching our business crumble over something that was outside of our control was such a difficult experience for me. I think that now that I've gone through that, in hindsight, I'll be able to look if things like that occur again and realize that in the moment, I can't control those things. I need to focus on what I can control. And that long term, there will be some benefit from this. And let's just stay locked in, focus on what's in our control, get through the situation, because there will be something that will come out of this that will benefit me, my family, and the experience. Like, that's an example, right? At the time when COVID first hits, you can't see anything other. It just was so extreme. And now maybe if situations like that occur, because I've had this lived experience, I'll be able to have the confidence to know that we'll get through it again and to stay calmer through that process. Maybe that's not the best example. That's an example.
No, that's a good example.
Or with kids, right? With kids, something comes up.
But before you move on that, I just want to ask, is that faith? And has that changed for you in the past 5 years? Because the way you described it, right, was like, this thing is a trial right now. This thing is a hardship right now. It feels like the end of the world, but I now know that there's going to be something good for me and my family at the tail end if I stay calm. Like, is that faith, and has that been impacted?
I don't know about that one. I mean, obviously faith has played a huge role in a lot of stuff lately. I would just say it's more like lived experience and earned confidence. It's like you've been there before. You've had your back up against the wall, and it will pass, and you'll learn something through it. And yeah, sure, faith definitely comes into that, but it's more so like trying to approach these situations with more of like, it's going to be a shitty situation regardless. So it might as well be a shitty situation you could learn from than just a bad situation. And I think that things like COVID or many other examples in my life just help to like build your confidence up that like, you'll get through it and there'll be a lesson. You'll get through it and there'll be a lesson. Like, stay locked in, stay focused. Like, don't let it crumble you. You know what I mean?
The other thing that I heard you mention just now, and I've heard you talk about this before, you've always been like you talk about Adam and how he helped you with, okay, what's in your control, what's out of your control from the CrossFit game days, right? Like, that was a big unlock for you, not focusing on stuff out of your control. It sounds like that was kind of the same lesson learned from the business side and COVID and all of that. And like, okay, what's in my control, what's out of my control? And obviously this is easier said than done, but not stressing about the things that are outside of your control and focusing on those inside of your control. how do you think that, those two things happening at different stages of your life impacted you differently? And why wasn't there maybe, now looking back on it, as much carryover on the lesson? Because you had already talked about like, this was something that I learned and something important, but were they that different that you kind of had to
No.
learn it in the business side versus the CrossFit game side? And now it's kind of like come together, or
I think now it's coming together, but I think it was just so extreme with COVID, right? It was so extreme. It's like,
the
dude,
stakes were so high.
the stakes were so high and it was so far outside of my control. Like if you had asked me before I signed a multi-million-dollar lease, if I ever considered the government shutting down my location, ever, I would have said no, right? So I think it struck me so powerfully because it's so far outside your control. Like it's like, like at the CrossFit Games, you're talking about, hey, not focusing on this, and you learn to compartmentalize, and you're not in control of your competitors. You're not in control of the events. You're not in control of this. When Ava gets sick, you're not in control of that. But those are things that, like, again, you can see the potential of whatever. When something like this happens, it never was even on the radar as something you had to worry about overcoming. I think that's what threw me back so much. And in hindsight, if I can go back in time, I would have just, I think we would have done very similar things. I think that I probably would have acted a little bit differently in certain situations, but I would have tried to remind myself of that more often than not. It was just very hard in the moment because when Newsom shuts you down and then opens you and then shuts you down, it was so hard because it's so far outside my control. And what you could say if you're listening to this would be like, well, dude, why don't you just not listen? Well, we chose in the beginning to abide by state and county laws. And if that was the choice that we made because we looked at the pros and cons, then you got to kind of like dance with the girl you brought to the prom in the words of MDV.
Would you do that differently?
No, I don't think so. And here's the reason why. I think that COVID was very difficult with the gyms and we lost a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. But it was so contentious. Like in this county, you had to wear a mask. In this one, you didn't. In this one, you did this and this. I think because we said, hey, we're taking our cues from the government mandate, it allowed our members and staff to realize like we weren't just coming up with these. So, because let's just say we didn't do that, right? And let's just say we came up with our own, well, who are we? Like, how do we then talk to our members and say, hey, the reason why we've chosen this is because we feel like 6 feet is too far and we think 2 feet's better. But like saying, you know what I mean? So it gave us an out to say that we're just abiding by the rules versus us having to justify why we chose a certain path, which I don't even know if I felt like we could justify. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was an impossible situation. And
for sure. Made more impossible by, how different states and counties handle everything. Thinking back on that stuff, man, does that stuff make you angry at all? Like, how do you? Yeah.
I mean, of course, but again, it's back to what's in your control. Like, I don't even think about it until we talk about it like this. What's in my control is like taking the lessons learned and moving forward and learning from that again. And, I hope that we never see that again in my lifetime, but if or when that happens, now we have that wisdom from the past, right? Which is what I'm talking about. Like as you get older, I think you gain wisdom because you have experiences, like certain things that come up with, especially with the kids, you only know that because you're going through it. And people could tell you all you want, but every kid is different. Every situation is different. So yeah, I get angry, but I also look at it as like a learning experience.
Yeah. And it's, and the most unfortunate part, right, is like, we're here and we're doing what we love, and Train Hard is an incredible brand. And that's a huge testament to what you built prior to COVID. And, people like on the team, like Matt, who, have run this ship as conservatively as you can and like put us in a good position. And there were definitely some pivots that were the right pivots. And, what I'm trying to get to is there's a lot of people that were impacted that don't have a business anymore, and that's incredibly unfortunate.
But that's the thing. Like when you talk about like computing age at 25 to 35, I think that's great. I'm putting more weight lately, especially on like wisdom gathering. And I think that's what's in my control. Like my brain might have reached its key potential, but I could gain so much more wisdom, which is why, if you're part of the Train Hard Men's Club, or excuse me, if you're part of Train Hard, make sure that you grab the book, let them, right? Gabe, let them,
Yeah, it's your
let them.
book.
Yes, let them.
It's your book, right?
Be- because we're going to be reading that, and we're going to be having a call on that July 11th, and so we're going to be, just trying to read books that open our minds. I mean, dude, I'd love to get a recommendation of a book that like I would never ever read. That's what I'm looking for, and then get other guys to read it too, and then
So
have good conversation about it.
So this just reminded me of, and I have to revisit it. I remember I started it and I fizzled out on it. I can't remember why. I think the beginning was just, or like I got another book and I got distracted. But Peter Attia recommends this book, From Strength to Strength, that the concept of it speaks exactly to this, because the whole thing that it talks about is that there's like two phases in your life. There's a life where like you're young, like you have unlimited energy, you have these things like, your what was the exact fluid intelligence is at a peak. Like you can do certain things and you should leverage those in a way, but then you have all these other strengths in the second half. You have the wisdom and you have relationships and you have these things that you now should pivot how you approach life and being successful in business by leveraging those and not trying to continue to do the things that require the strengths in your first half of life. And it's a really, really interesting concept. I remember I was into it. I can't remember why I didn't finish it. I actually talked to Dennis about this too, because he was talking about reading it and, the fact that it says that in the second half, a lot of your strengths are the relationships that you have and the meaningful kind of friends that you've built and all of that. And we were talking about it in the context of sometimes, I've talked to you about this too. I feel like I don't have that currently. And I think that a large part of that, and the book kind of talks about this too, is when you're transitioning, it could feel like that, right? Because you're almost like, you're not in the second stage where you kind of get this second group of friends that are the friends that you have that have the kids also, and are also like in the stage of life that you're at now. But, definitely an interesting read. I'm going to revisit it and I'll talk about it on the podcast. But I remember it talked about exactly that, because none of this is to say that like, oh, it's all downhill once that's over. It's just you have a specific skill set that is peaked at this stage of life. How can you leverage that because it's your strength? And then how can you transition to these other things like lived experience, like relationships you built, like wisdom? And you should operate very differently in the second half because you no longer have these other things as strengths. Now you have these other strengths. So from strength to strength.
That's a good way to, that's from strength to strength. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, dude, we're seeing it firsthand, obviously the men's club. Like I was out in Richmond, what was that? A couple days ago. Right. And you get 20 guys coming out there and they all have something in common, right? Obviously there's a connection through me. These guys are interested in fitness, but just watching them connect on like a personal level and make some new bonds with new people. Like Eric, I had done an event for this gentleman, Eric. I had gone on digitally. He was from Virginia Beach and he drove 3 hours to be there, right? I had done a virtual event for him and he felt compelled to come out. We went to Starbucks after and just had a great conversation. Like, I think that's what happens as you get older, right? You develop relationships and like you're going to be in this phase where your kids start to go either through a homeschooling network or whatever and start making some relationships that way. Because you're right. And you need to have those type of things. It's so important. You have to have those because otherwise, like, you got to have relationships. That's why the men's club is so powerful.
It's so important, man. Even what I got out of this weekend with my college buddies again, where there was zero like deep conversations and whatever, because we were just there for a weekend. Like it was all like laughs and like, like remembering, old times and kind of catching up and like making jokes about how we're getting old and stuff. But man, you come out of that like feeling just refreshed and rejuvenated in a way that's tough to put into words, tough to describe, but I'm sure you get it from like the men's club and kind of what you regularly have access to. And again, I'm not saying I necessarily don't, because I don't really seek it out just now, but that was just such a real example of like, I don't know, I can't explain it, and I wish you could bottle it up and just drink it, but like you come out and it's like, man, just seeing the boys again.
Because you weren't just consuming, you're actually participating. I think that's the difference, is that so many people consume content online, consume podcasts like what we're talking about right now. They're consumers, right? But you're not participating. Then all of a sudden, you get in a group of guys, you start participating. You're having real, like, I think that we need to be aware, especially nowadays, the algorithm. And you and I talk about this a lot. It's like, dude, people are going to become more and more closed-minded and more of consumers because you're getting fed exactly what you want. And we gotta try and combat that as much as possible. And so I think we have to be participants and not just consumers. Participants like this book, we're trying to have people participate in a book club to talk about a book, right? We're not just having them read it. I want to hear from you. Like, what are you thinking about this? So those are the small things that we're going to try and do at Train Hard to help that. Right. But that's a good way to put it. I've never described it that way, but like instead of being a consumer, you're a participant.
For sure. Yeah.
And the participation makes you feel a lot of self-fulfillment and gratitude.
Yeah. And there's also something about the in-person aspect that is just so powerful still, right? Just being around the guys again was so much fun. For sure.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to try and pursue that in your local area as much as possible. I mean, I'd encourage everybody to do that. You know, I know for me, dude, it's crazy. The men's club, we did the 15 burpee test for 5 minutes. They did okay. They were pretty good. It was a pretty fit group. And then I went and I worked with Customs and Border Protection. And bro, these guys, dude, this group, their conditioning was rock solid. They did 6 minutes of burpees, 15 every minute on the minute. And they were just, dude, it was great. Solid crew. So shout out to Customs and Border Protection, their special response team. Those guys absolutely crushed that and then crushed the workout. Their area of improvement is definitely pure strength, but we gave them some tools to think about for that. So there's a lot of fit dudes out there, man, for sure. And this was a good example of that. I really enjoyed my time at Fort Walker.
Guy loves the burpee test. Loves
Dude, it's the greatest thing ever. Like, if you can't do burpees for 4 or 5 minutes, come on. You got to do it. 15 a minute.
This was an interesting post that I saw the other day. I put it as a note for last episode, but we didn't get to it. And it kind of builds on what I was telling you about in Ecuador and how car seats aren't a big deal there. But it was just a stat that, again, just happened to be Chris Williamson put it up. And he was saying how car seat laws are serving as contraception, which is just like an interesting way that I had never thought about it. But the statistic is that, like, sure, car seat laws save lives. But according to research, it was like, I mean, I can click on this, but it was like 20 or whatever. But on the flip side, there are a lot of families whose one of the primary reasons that they don't have 3 kids versus 2 is because you have to get a whole different car because everyone needs a car seat. And the fact that here those rules are so stringent actually ends up limiting how many kids families end up having, because it's an economic deterrent. Like, a big reason that families now aren't having a lot of kids is because, you know, people aren't doing as well economically and kids are expensive. And one of the biggest, maybe not the biggest, but a big consideration is like, hey, we have to get a new car if we have 3. So 2 tends to be the sweet spot. But anyway, I just thought that it was an interesting take on car seat laws.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
According to
I feel like if you're thinking about having a 3rd kid, you're probably not debating, oh, we need a new car for a 3rd car seat, because at that point, you know, one of your kids might be old enough to be out of it or whatever. I don't know. I mean, dude, I've never been put in that situation.
I think that a lot of people end up having as many kids as they have because the cost, it's cost prohibitive. 100%.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And I think that this is a big consideration. Anyway, but the post said that according to one analysis, U.S. car seat laws saved 57 lives in 2017, but resulted in 8,000 fewer births. I don't know how they come up with that calculation, but anyway, it was
it's like, hey, bro, you want to have you're talking to your wife. It's like, hey, do you want to have another child? It's like, well, I don't know if we're ready. You know, there's a lot of considerations. But the one that like really put you over the top is that you don't want to have to buy a minivan to support 3 car seats. I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like there's so many other, like, how about, you know, how are we going to feed them? How are we going to, you know, have enough rooms for them in our house? You know what I mean? I just, Liz puts up, the world is meant for families of 4. I do agree with that. Like, everything is easier at 4 than when you jump to 5 or 6, for sure. I mean, that's for sure.
One of the things that I love about, and this wasn't like intentionally why we moved to Texas, but it is a reason that I genuinely love Texas, is everyone has hella kids. And it's just like, you know, again, this is personal, like just what we enjoy and our values and what we want to be around. And hopefully, you know, if all goes according to plan, like, dude, I'm trying to have kids until Ariel's like we're done having kids. Like, it's like when they ask you, like, tell me when to stop with the cheese on the pasta. Like, I'm not going to say stop. I want a big family, man. I want so many kids. But we'll see what that number ends
Dude,
up being.
we had a guy move in nearby and he has 8 kids.
I love it. Dude, I love it.
Dude, bless those people who could have 8 kids, but man, they have this giant Sprinter van to take their family around.
You see?
You want to go do, dude, if you want to go do anything, like, but you know, Liz is right. The world is definitely, I mean,
For
and as your
sure.
kids get older, dude, my kids are 14 and 11. Now, when we travel, you know, we're like, we've already passed this place, but dude, having one room for 4 basically adults is like very hard. And like, we've gotten away with it for a little while. But in general, we have to have either like a you know, cot, pull out couch, 2 rooms. Like, it's just hard, dude. Like, we need more than 1 bathroom. Like, it starts to add up. So when you start thinking about traveling, dude, 4 tickets. Now you're buying what, 6 or 8 tickets to go somewhere. You're never jumping on a plane. I mean, dude, that's like you're bringing a whole like almost a basketball team with you everywhere.
I know, which is why I need to take advantage of the fact that my fluid intelligence is peaking right now and figure out ways to make some more goddamn money so I can have my 8 kids.
So basically what Gabe is saying is that he needs more revenue so that he could have more kids. So if you want to help Gabe grow his
You should definitely check out the app right now.
You should check out the Train Hard app, which is in the podcast show notes. We are finishing up our TH45 challenge here for Father's Day, coming up June 15th. It actually like right around when this episode releases. And now I'll tell you, the results that we're seeing are just absolutely incredible. So if you've been listening to this show for a while and you are not on our app, you're missing out on so many pieces. Like, we have the training programs, of course. We have the community that I think is just rock solid, that holds people accountable. So if you are listening to this podcast right now and you're a part of the app and you're not on the community section, dude, go say what's up to us. We want to hear from you. That's really important to us. So make sure you jump on there. Oh, we have a Q&A coming up. But hey, don't forget, check out the podcast show notes. Join the Train Hard app so that Gabe could have 6, 7, 8. What's the max you would have kids?
It was funny. So this question came up with my buddies over the weekend a lot, and I've been thinking about it. And I think the way that I would best describe it is, you know how they say with some things, it's like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. For me, for kids, it's the opposite. It's like, if it's not a hell no, it's a hell yes. Like, I think there's going to be a point where we're like 100% sure that like, dude, we're good and this is it. But if there's any like you want to do one more, like you think, and like I say, do it. I remember Savan brought this up on the podcast when he talked about it, because he never thought he was going to have kids, and you know, he stayed with his friend who I think he was talking about Greg, and you know, he said you'll never regret having a kid, but you might regret not having one.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it was.
And that's just that's how I think about it. So I don't know, you know, we joke about the numbers all the time. We're taking it one at a time, but it's definitely like, whenever we get to the point where it's kind of like that decision, it's, you know, if it's not a hell no, it's a hell yes. So
yeah, I mean, there's so many factors that come into play, right? Because if you grow too big and now all of a sudden you're detached because you're too, like, you can't be present with them, or you can't provide them a life that's, like, I mean, obviously there's exceptions, but like, as you go, you'll have to continue to evaluate those things, right? Like, hey,
I don't think that any of that stuff applies, man. I just don't. I think that, like, and again, this is just my opinion. I think that kids are like the hack to leveling up. I think that having another kid gives you more capacity to like love more, to provide more, to be more present. We have so much time, energy, and love that I think we genuinely waste. And I've learned this through too, and I hope that this continues to be the case. Maybe someone listening is like, man, when he gets older, he'll figure out that it's not the case. But I just think that like, it's one of those things where you level up to that necessity, because it's just such a powerful, like, dude, I will do anything for these kids. I don't care if it's 8, if it's 10 of them. Obviously, you know, those numbers, even like saying it out loud, it's probably not going to happen, but I'd love to have a big family. And I really think that, you know, if you're thinking about it and it's kind of like, well, you know, how am I going to like afford it, or maybe present for everyone? Like, dude, they have a way of just lifting you up and making like, you will figure that stuff out. You will fill it out. I 100% believe that. And
I think that regardless of anybody listening, like what you said, I don't see how you could take that as a negative, right? Like,
for sure,
yeah, you might have a different vantage point when you're at number 4 or 5, but the fact that like you're saying like, dude, like you're gonna rise the occasion. It's like, all right,
100%.
let's go. Like I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a great thing. All right, Q&A.
Q&A.
What advice would you? I haven't read this one yet, so I heard it's a good one though. What advice would you give to the spouse of someone who's angry and depressed, not open to getting help, and makes false promises to change? Ooh, they lean on drinking, smoking, and just seem mad at the world. I know it's tough for them, but it's hard on the partner too. Do you think this is coming from a girl, guy? Who do you think this is coming from? Oh, it's okay. Well, I read it as a woman sharing this about a man, and that's what it is. So it's a woman sharing this. In my opinion, I'm reading this as a woman sharing this about a man. And why that matters to me is that I do think men and women address things a little bit differently, and maybe we have a
100%.
different approach.
Super
And
different.
we are no means an expert on helping women break through, certain things. But I think that we could share some stuff for men. So I guess where do you want to start with this?
Dude, it's tough, man. The part of the question that makes this super, super tough, and I think it applies to so many things. We've talked a lot about it with fitness, right? It's not open to getting help, because I think with so much of this stuff, it's how do you force someone to take what is pretty big and scary and meaningful first steps to improving anything, right? Like this stuff is pretty heavy because, being angry, being depressed, like I can't imagine what something like that feels like, because I haven't experienced it. But like, I would assume that there are some similarities to just being out of shape or letting yourself go a little bit, some similarities in that, like, it takes a level of, I think, vulnerability to take the first step, because the first step to changing any of these things is admitting that there's something wrong. And I think with men specifically, we've talked about this, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Like a big reason men struggle with this stuff is because that's the hardest thing to do, is like just admitting that, that you're not okay, that you're struggling, like going against this like pressure to like, things we talk about, protect, provide, be all the things, be the leader, be okay, do it, and do it with a smile on your face and just show up. Like that shit's hard, man. It's a lot of pressure. And so I think that to me is the hardest thing. It's how do you do anything if they're just not open to getting help? I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I had something like mind blowing that I can share and be helpful here. But I think like the most honest thing I can say is like, man, if they're not open, like, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to like, let's just take this guy. All right. We're going to call this guy Bob. And Bob goes to work, tries to do his best, but he's angry. He has some childhood stuff that makes him angry. Like he's not willing to change, right? I get it. I've seen people like him, and I think that what it will take is for that individual to have some friends who come up to him and start having a real conversation. So like if I was this woman, I would probably try and go talk to his brother, his friend, someone, and be like, hey, this is the way I'm feeling, right? So first, if I was this woman, I would first have like a real conversation with my husband or this person, right? Spouse. So I'd have a real conversation, like sit him down and be like, look, like this is really affecting me, and I want to have like a real conversation. But I think sometimes women and men, they address things differently. And I think that if it's something that's like really serious, I think they need to sit down and like have like a real conversation about it. So assuming they have like, and she's really like really spoke about how she feels, what she's seeing. Because sometimes like, dude, especially if somebody's mad, you don't want to bring that up to them. So if you haven't done that and communicated well, maybe that's the first step. Maybe you get him into therapy. Maybe you start working towards small things. And then I'd also try and connect with like some of his friends or his family and have them maybe talk to him offline. Be like, hey, this is what I'm seeing in Bob. Like, it's really tough. Do you think you could talk to him for me? Do you think you could take him out fishing? Can you have a conversation with him? Can you start to understand him more? And then maybe that individual can shine some light for the woman about what he's going through. And maybe then she could have even more compassion and empathy, and it could create this path towards at least moving in the right direction, right? But I think that he needs to be surrounded by people. Do you get what I'm saying? So one, I think it's communication, and I think it's men having a real conversation with this guy about like, dude, what's going on? Because sometimes it's hard, dude, and it's also hard with your spouse, right? So if they're not being If they're not being communicative to the spouse, then maybe start finding some other guys that can help you out and be on your team. I've experienced that here. Right? I've experienced it where you got guys going through stuff and they're talking to me about it and not their spouses because it's just that first step. It's the best I got with that.
Yeah, encouraging them to be around other men to where like maybe they'll share, maybe they won't, but there's something about that, right? Like, I mean, you've seen it more times and more up close than anyone else. Like there's just something to this whole shoulder to shoulder thing, man, that like, even just like, it's like, you know, a breath of fresh air or like a release that can help them just clear their mind to then figure out like, oh, there's this solution to this thing, or there's this better way to approach this, or whatever it is.
Dude, I've had people message me online who download the Train Hard app for their husband and ask me questions like, hey, I really want my husband to be a part of this. What can he do? Be like, bro. And I didn't say bro, but I said, I'll reply back. I'll be like, hey, we got your husband. We got him. Like, just connect him with us. We got you. And I think that if Bob can get connected to either a family or a friend member or a network of guys, or shit, have Bob reach, have him hit me up, right? You hit me up. Whoever asked this question, hit me up. I'll reach out to Bob and start having conversations. And I think that that's just a place to start. And then eventually over weeks and months, you start to break down some of these walls. You start to understand why this person is angry. And is there something that we could do to help them? And maybe fitness is a path, or maybe there's other options. Of course, there's therapy, and that's a tremendous tool. But I think that maybe it'll have to come from one of his like quote unquote brothers, versus if it's not coming through the spouse.
The other part of this question that quickly just reminded me of something that I really liked that went up on your channel the other day or yesterday was makes false promises to change. You know, like we've talked in the past, and this is kind of like a well-known and spoken about a lot, but like you're only as good as your word, right? Like you're always taught that, like in those lists of like, manly rules, it's like, like if you say something like, be about it, commit to it. And I think that a lot of men, live to that and are men of their word. And if they say they're going to be there at a certain time or help you with something, like they'll be there. But I think that in that group, there's going to be some that the promises they make to themselves are the ones that they break. And this can be as little as like, hey, I am going to start on Monday, or I am going to download that workout app. Maybe it's ours, maybe it isn't. I am going to start, going on walks after dinner. I am going to start, cutting out, whatever it is that I know isn't moving me in the right direction. And then you don't keep that promise to yourself. Like, I think there's so much more importance to keeping the promises that you make to yourself than even the ones you make to other people. The problem is that it's easier to break those promises because no one's there to—
No one's holding you accountable.
No one's going to hold you accountable. No one's going to know, right? Like it's the constant, like no one's looking stuff. But man, like if you commit to something, like you got to see it through. And if you don't, like admit to it and start again. But like those are the promises that I think are most important. And something I think about a lot with the things I talk about on this podcast and what I say I'm about, and, are the actions that I take on day in and day out representative of that? When I do things that like no one's ever going to know about, no one's ever watching me doing these things, am I handling myself in a way that like is in line with what I don't sit here and say I promise to do X, Y, and Z, but in between the lines, it's implied that you would expect someone that's a part of this brand, a part of this podcast that talks about the things that we do with the passion that we do, that there should be things that I, walk the walk on, and something I constantly think about, and definitely not 100%, but I aim to be. And I think that's the goal. That's what we're all trying to do.
We should put out a little bit more content like that. Like, it's so easy to keep promises for other people. It's hard to keep them for yourself. But I think that if you keep them for yourself, it just helps you develop it for all other areas. But for this person who asked the question, I'd encourage you, just reach out to me. I'd like to dive in this a little bit more. And this is a really, really powerful question because I think there's quite a few women who are in this exact same position. And if I met a woman, I had dinner with her and a group of people on Saturday night in Chicago. And she told me that if her ex-husband had been a part of a men's group, she thinks she still would have been married to him. And what she was alluding to is that he just got he didn't have anybody holding him accountable. He didn't have anybody, and she just couldn't get through to him, and it ended up ending their relationship. So if for this person who asked the question, hit us up. And if any other person is out there, right, I'd encourage you, if you're a guy listening to this story, don't be that guy. Right? Don't be that guy. Motivate yourself to like be open-minded and to listen to your spouse. And if you're a spouse out there who has someone that they're working with like this, hit us up and we'll see if we can support in any way. We're not therapists. We can connect you to some people, but we sure as hell could just create a group of people and invite them out to California, get in a hard workout with us. That's what we could do.
Before we wrap up, you had told me that, and I thought a lot about it, man, because that's powerful. The lady who came up to you and said exactly that, right? Like if my husband had been a part of a men's group like this, we'd probably still be married. When you hear something like that, man, like how does that make you?
MTV was right there. MTV heard it too. Yeah.
How does that make you feel? There's an aspect of that that's like, wow, what we're doing is super powerful, but there's an aspect to that that's like super sad too, you know?
I think what it is more powerful than anything, right? It's just like, dude, I'm going to be in Vegas June 19th. If you're out there, we welcome you. Hit us up on social and we'll tell you where the time and place, or make sure you follow on social and we'll share. But dude, just the mission is real. And when you have people like that talk about it, it's like, it also sparks more people that are going to start these things. I mean, we get messages every day. So yeah, it reminds me of like the work we're doing matters. People on our app and the community that we're building, it matters. And like, we're just getting started in all of this stuff. And that fires me up. Not to mention, we're going to have a nationwide tour of Tug-of-War that's going to be a year from now. And we're going to have thousands of men doing Tug-of-War across the country. It's happening. We're going to do it. Earmark this podcast and we'll be doing it. All right, guys. Well, hey, appreciate you always for listening. If you're new to the Train Hard ecosystem, go back, check out all the other podcasts. Make sure you're on our newsletters. Make sure you're joining us on social. If you've been in the game with us for a long time, we appreciate you guys very, very much. And if we could ever support you, just let us know. Keep training hard.
Let's do it.